in this question, it is a activity-based costing question. And if I read number 1, it tells me in the manufacturing overhead account, what does that entry represent? And on the left, it's always the actual manufacturing overhead. And then on the right is going to be the applied. So we can either use job costing or activity-based costing in order to move the applied out into the work in process when we start a job. So it tells me that we have these cost pools. So they came up with the cost pools and the measurement, and they estimated the activity, and they also estimated the cost of the activity. So that's always done at the beginning of the year. So what we need to do is figure out what the predetermined overhead rate is. And then we're going to use that when we apply our manufacturing overhead to each job or product. So in the first one where it says labor related, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 640 and divide that by the 40. So 640 divided by 40, that gives me, and I'll want to put it to 2 decimal places. That gives me $16. So I'm going to put that down here. Then my purchase orders, I've got the 42 and the 15. So I'll do 42,000 and 1,500. So this is orders. So that gives me 28. My parts management is going to take the 348,000 parts and divide that by $348,000 in parts divided by the 400 parts. And that gives me 870. Then my board etching is just taking my 460,000 boards, dividing $460,000 in boards and divide that by the 2,000. So that gives me 230. And then my general factory is just based off of machine hours. So I'll take 520,000 estimated dollars in machine hours for general factory and divide that by the 80,000 machine hours. And it just did the math for me. So that's $6.50. So these are called the predetermined overhead rates. So we're going to use these with the actual activity when we're working on the product or job to allocate the manufacturing overhead. So this one is only for one product. So you could have more than one product. And we're going to determine the applied manufacturing overhead, or you can call it allocated manufacturing overhead. So we do this based off of the actual activity. So now we get this when it's happening in real time. So my labor related, I'm going to take my 41,000 direct labor hours, and then I'm going to multiply it by my direct labor predetermined overhead rate. So it's this number right here, the $16 that I calculated. So then for labor related applied overhead, I'm going to put that down as 656,000. Then my purchase orders, I'm going to find out my actual purchase orders were 1,300. And then I'm going to multiply that by my predetermined overhead rate for purchase orders, which is the 28. So I have it calculated right up there. So 1,300 times 28 means I'm going to allocate 36,400 of applied overhead to purchase orders. Parts management, there is 420 actual parts used, and my predetermined overhead rate is 870. Which is also this number right there. So that's 365,400. My board etching is 2,150. So I etched 2,150 boards, and my predetermined overhead rate was 230, which is also that number that I calculated. So if I multiply those out, then I get 494,500. And then my general factory was 82,000 machine hours. And my predetermined overhead rate was the $6.50 per machine hour. So that's the $6.50 there. And when I multiply that out, it gives me 533,000. So my total overhead is 2085300. Now, there's two ways to find out the applied under or over applied overhead. So we can just do a quick look. So this was my actual 2256 and this is my applied 2085. So we didn't apply enough because actual was too much. So we've under applied it. Or you can just go like this. If you always take your applied overhead of 2085300 and then subtract your actual overhead, which was 2256000, then if this number ends up in brackets or a negative, then it's under applied. If it ends up as a positive, then it's over applied. So I'm going to say here that it's under applied by 170,700.